Hello everyone, good afternoon. It is October the 19th and it is Friday. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a quick video on racket stringing, and at the same time we're going to discuss a few topics that are new in the tennis world. Well, not necessarily new, but have transpired within the past, 24 hours or so, at least since I've seen the news, and that being the fifth set tiebreakers at Wimbledon changing from no tiebreaker to having a tiebreaker. So, by the way, while I'm stringing this racket, my 2-year-old is in the background, so if he makes some noise, then hey, don't shoot me, but I have heard before that sometimes my little guy in the background makes a lot of noise. So anyway, what I'm doing first of all is I'm starting this racket being strung. And we start with the main strings when we string a tennis racket, and these are the main strings. So on this racket we have 6 main holes on the inside of the throat of the racket. When we have 6 holes on the bottom or on the throat, we want to start at the throat. If we start at the head of the racket, when we get moving on each side of the tennis racket, it will come out incorrectly. So be careful about that. If you're ever stringing a racket and you're wondering, do I start at the head of the racket or do I start at the throat of the racket? Look for your reference material, obviously, internet, US RSA guide, or whatever it may be. But just to make it simple, if you see 2 holes or 6 holes on the bottom, start at the bottom or throat. If you see 4 holes or 8 holes, you want to start at the head of the racket. So I'm just starting the mains real quickly, and then we'll get into the topic about Wimbledon and the tiebreaker and whether you may favor it or not. So I do a 2-piece stringing. For me, I find it a little bit more user-friendly to do a 2-piece stringing. So what I'm doing is I'm leveling out the amount of string that's going to go on either side of the racket. So I'm going to pull tension on both strings to start with at one time. And I'm going to basically set an anchor string. So I have tension pulled on both strings at once. And I'm going to set my anchor string so I can go back and pull tension on the string or on one string so I can make sure the tension is correct on both sides of the racket. So I set my anchor string, you can see here, and I'm going to go and I'm going to re-pull tension on this first main string on the right side of my racket. And I'm going to clamp that off closest to the tension head. Which, by the way, the tension head is, you can see it, so that's great. All right, so I let the tension off at this point, and I'm going to start working down this right side. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to string the mains of this tennis racket while I do so. So I read this morning that there was a change in the Wimbledon 5th set or tiebreakers for the men's, women's, juniors, and etc. Personally, I'm not a favor of that at all. For me, I think that Wimbledon changing their tiebreakers is just a matter of caving in to those people that want to gripe and yell and complain and moan about how much time this takes and how much time players put into 70, 68 in the 5th or whatever it may be. For me, I think it's an absolute slap in the face. I do not think that Wimbledon should change the tradition of tennis simply because there's a few people that want to gripe about the final that may ensue or the next match that may ensue if a player beforehand goes the proverbial 70, 68 in the 5th. I mean, let's be real. If you are at Wimbledon, or any major for that matter, and you are in, say, let's use the Kevin Anderson, and who did Kevin Anderson play that went 70? Baby, who was Kevin Anderson playing in the last Wimbledon? I already forgot. Isner? All right, so we had Isner and Anderson that went. It wasn't 70-58 or 70-68. That was Mahout. I think that was Mahout and Isner a couple of years back, wasn't it, Carla?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, okay, we have two matches, and there's been a lot more, but we have two matches that, given the duration of those matches, we have a lackluster match by the person involved in that match the next time they play. In this sense, I'm going to use Kevin Anderson because I don't think we can expect Nicolas Mahut to go too terribly far in any type of major tournament. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Nicolas Mahut, a phenomenal doubles player, heck of a gentleman, and a good singles player. But how is it that we can change a tradition that goes back over 100 years at Wimbledon because we have some people whining and crying about how long the match takes? I mean, from a coaching perspective, should we not indicate, or should we not say to the player or to those involved in those matches, quote, why in the heck don't we shut the match down earlier? Why don't we just go ahead and put this match away? Therefore, it becomes a push fest and a dink fest and a hold serve fest. And we get to 70-68 in the fifth. So now, because of so many people with their need for instant gratification, they need to pull something out and look at their phone and figure out some new quick way to get things done. Here, I want to see something immediately, or I don't want to see it at all. This match is taking too long, so therefore I want it changed. Whine. To me, preposterous. If I have a student that has made it to 70-68 in the fifth set, I'm going to be kind of upset that we didn't get this match completed, and further that by saying, now what kind of stamina are we going to have left in the tank for the next match? So, real quick, I'm going to take a break from the topic because I just started this video because really I wanted to string this racket. By the way, this is my wife's Dunlop 300, which is a racket that she began to like to play with when she got one of these from Amelie Mauresmo. I was lucky to find another Dunlop 300, and I just got it in the mail today, so this is kind of the restructuring or restringing of this racket. But this morning when I woke up, back to the Wimbledon stuff, this morning when I woke up, the first article I read related to tennis was about Wimbledon changing its timeless traditions because of some people, surely with some pull or political power or whatever it may be, were probably lobbied and caved in to this idea that because a couple of matches have gone 70-68. Maybe, do you remember the score of the Isner-Anderson match? I mean, it wasn't 70-68. That was Mahout and Isner. Do you remember? It was what?
I'll tell you in a second.
So, again, I mean, is that what society is coming to? That if we don't like something, we're going to gripe about it until we...
26-24 in the last set.
26-24.
But I disagree with you. I think it's a great match.
Okay, so Carla's in the background. She's cleaning as usual. Again, with 5 kids, I think you have to continue to clean and clean and clean. But she thinks that it's a good idea that they're changing to a fifth set no tiebreaker, or a deciding set no tiebreaker. Or better yet, it's the deciding set no tiebreaker for men's, women's, and juniors, right? That's correct, right, Carla?
I don't know if it's for everyone.
Yeah, it's for men's, women's, and juniors. I read that earlier. So, for me, this is a poll question. Do you support the men and women and juniors not having a tiebreaker in the fifth or deciding set, or do you not support it? Do you support it, or do you not support it? Again, I personally do not support it in any way, shape, or form. I know in a lot of the videos that I do for our tennis show podcast, where I discuss a lot of things that I may like or may not like, and I hear other people's opinions about it or not. In this case, I am 1,000,000%, a trillion% against this. A game in which has been around for hundreds of years, if not longer, in different contexts. We're going to change it because of a couple of matches and people whining and crying and carrying on. For me, I think it's a slap in the face to the game. I mean, after all, we're athletes. Isn't this what we're supposed to train for? If you are 70-68 in the fifth or 26-24 in the fifth, that's your problem. In my opinion, from a coaching standpoint, that should have been handled a long time ago. And I can promise you, I would never imagine. The longest match I've seen Federer play was against Roddick, where he went. Do you remember the Roddick score at Wimbledon, babe? I think it was like 13-11 in the fifth or something along those lines. But if you're the best of the best and supposed to be the best of the best, I don't even see yourself going 50-49 or 70-68 in the fifth. I think it's preposterous. So let me just rephrase this question. Do you think that it's a good idea for Wimbledon to change, which they've already done it, so I mean, I guess we can pretend like it's past tense or something, but do you think that the choice that Wimbledon made for the fifth set tiebreaker is a good idea or a bad idea? And I want to know why on both fronts. And I'm not going to put too much emphasis on whether you're a player or just a fan. I don't think it really matters. However, for me, I want to tell you why I do not like it. Fact of the matter is, ageless game, okay? There's no excuses for not closing out a match in 3 sets if it's 3 out of 5. There's no excuse for not closing out a match in 4 sets. If you go 5, great. That's what the fifth set's for. But gee whiz, if you're a primed athlete that is trained to get to that level, and you can't close the door by the time you get to 70-68 in the fifth set, I mean, gee whiz, you deserve to lose the next round. I mean, come on, man. When it gets that far in, it's a bunch of pushing and a bunch of dinking and a bunch of hacking simply so the servers can get the ball back. And let's be real. Every match that has gone that far, is it not some big serving Isner type person or Anderson type person that leads us into that boring display in the first place? No one would be yelling about this if it was Federer and Djokovic that went to 70-68 in the fifth. No one would be griping about this if it was Nadal and Djokovic, or if it was anybody that we like to play. Think about that. So a whole tradition of a game is going to change because some people, oh man, I just can't sit and watch 6 hours of stuff because I'd rather be looking at my phone so I can see what's coming up next on social media. I want to know if you are in favor of the fifth set tiebreak and why not and why. You know my take on it. Carla agrees with it.
Yeah,
I do not.
It was a boring Wimbledon final. Definitely agree with that.
So that's Djokovic's fault? That's Anderson's fault? Djokovic closed out his matches when he needed to, right?
We don't need to make these players more tired. There's too many tournaments. That needs to be put in. Maybe not every match, but maybe the last ones.
So all I want to get at least the reason why I made this video, is how can a game so traditional be changed because of a few matches? Okay, this isn't something new. You don't think there's been long matches at Wimbledon before? I mean, there's nothing new about this, right? I mean, it's relatively old news. So again, all I want to know is how is it that we can change hundreds of years, maybe a century and a half. How can we change a century and a half of a game because of a few nitwits that think that matches should be shorter because they didn't care to watch Anderson and Isner, and they didn't want to watch Mahut or Isner. Okay, so we're changing the game for me, and my favorite tournament of all is Wimbledon. Everyone has their favorite tournaments. My favorite tournament of all is definitely Wimbledon. So here we are. We are changing Wimbledon as a whole because of, in my opinion, instant gratification need for fans and other people that watch this sport, and most of those in favor of it, in my opinion, aren't players. They're not necessarily more than just your prototypical fans that just want to get in and out and get back home to their freaking social media stuff. So I'm opening this debate up. You can hate me for it. You can disagree with me for it. Whatever it may be. But there is no way that I would ever condone changing a tournament like Wimbledon. I would understand it a little bit if the U.S. Open did it. I mean, next, what are we going to have? Coaching on the sidelines? I mean, gee whiz, the women already have that.
Actually, yeah, that was brought up.
And it's an absolute farce. Look, I can promise you, if I ever have to watch the men be coached on the sideline, then I tell you what, I'm just going to stop watching it altogether, and then I'm going to start doing videos on the old pros and the old players from the times where tennis was less full of a bunch of pansies. If you go 70-68 in the fifth set, you should have closed it out earlier. But no, because people want to get in at it somewhere quicker, and they have places to be, and they have this da 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 da. I mean, man, if I was watching Federer and Djokovic play, or Nadal and Federer play, I tell you what, I can promise you, I would hope and pray they went 70-68 in the fifth. So anyway, I'm gonna get back to stringing this racket, but I wanted to knock out two birds with one stone per se, and get my thoughts out that really aggravated me earlier today. A tournament that has been something so prevalent in my life, in my upbringing, and everything that I stand for isn't necessarily conservative in tradition and so forth, but it's darn sure my mindset is wrapped around people actually trying. They don't want the easy way out. They don't want to take the shortcut. Fact of the matter is, Isner should have beaten Mahut years ago in 2 hours in straight sets. But no, he let it go to 70-68 in the fifth. And let's be real, when Isner and Anderson played, I mean, they were both worn out after the third set anyway, and it turned into a freaking serve-a-thon. Anyway, I'm going to get back to stringing this racket. I wanted to do a little video of Carla unboxing her 14, 15-year-old racket that is now new to her again. So I did the main strings, the up and down strings, top to bottom strings already. And I want to make sure I get my over and unders done, and I can do it quickly, more this quickly versus up and down when I'm talking. So let me know what your take is on Wimbledon now having a fifth set tiebreaker. I disagree with it completely. At this level, you need to be able to close the door, okay? If anyone out there can say that they would agree with this if it was Djokovic and Federer, or Djokovic and Nadal, or Federer Djokovic in a final, and you wouldn't want to sit for hours on end or days on end to watch these two guys finish it out, okay, I would think you're full of it if you wouldn't want to see that. But you cannot tell me that this isn't a give in or a bow down to a bunch of whining people. Anderson, grow up, man. You should have won that match, or you should have shut the door. Has anybody looked at the mathematics or the economic gain that Anderson got for winning that match? I think for him making the final, he got like $1.2 million or something. I don't care if it went 273 to 271 in the fifth. He just got paid more money than I've ever seen in my lifetime with the exponent of 10. And we're complaining about it. Oh, I didn't want it to go so long. I didn't want it to go so long, and therefore I had no room left, or I have nothing left in the final. That's called a tournament. You should have won earlier. And stop griping about how much money you made, because you made more money than 98% of people on this planet in about 4, 5, 6 hours. That's my feelings. Wimbledon messed this one up, messed it up royally because of a bunch of whiners. That's my spiel for the day. Like it or don't. Subscribe to it or don't. The fact of the matter is the game, as we all know, is changing now at a rapid pace. Rapid pace. And everybody's just sitting back and lapping it up. Next thing you know, we're going to go to Wimbledon, and they're going to be able to wear camouflage and coaching on the sidelines and no tiebreakers. Heck, might as well make it a 10-point match. Forget 2 out of 3 sets. Forget 3 out of 5 sets. Let's just make the whole match 10 points. Okay? And that way no one has to cry over how long their match is or how much money they made. Seriously. That's what it's all about. A bunch of whiners. Grow up. Suck it up. If you don't have the gusto to give it all and get it done, get out. It's preposterous. Age-old tournament. Traditional since the lawns of the old England. And we have now changed it for all generations to come because of a few whiners that griped about the match took too long because they were sitting there watching and they had to go home and watch their shows. Anyway, you know my feelings. Let's hear your feelings. I'm open to them all. At the end of the day, thanks a lot for watching, listening to me gripe. But this one kind of hurt me this morning, as Wimbledon has always been my favorite tournament. I know it's a lot of other people's favorite tournaments. What do you think? Are you happy that Wimbledon initiated a tiebreaker in a deciding set for men, women, juniors, etc.? Furthermore, what's next? Coaching on the sidelines? No more whites? Wear a pink skirt or whatever you want? Your thoughts. I welcome them. All right, anyway, I'm getting back to stringing this racket, and we will see you for the next show soon. See ya!